Hello.
So today is my case, and I'm kind of changing it up a little bit. I thought it would be a good little mix. I'm talking
Gotta
about
keep things
a,
exciting.
yes, a mob boss in Philadelphia,
Ooh.
which we will always have lots of cases that we are going to focus on the victims, but sometimes it's a little interesting to throw in those characters to learn their background, like mobsters and things like that. So I thought this would be a nice little change. And after my yogurt shop case, I definitely needed a more not that one case is any different than the other in the sense of how terrible it is, but it's a little intriguing to learn about those things, to think that like some of these facts, what I'm going to tell you was going on back in the 80s and stuff, is crazy to think it was going on in Philly.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So, and I don't know. I do find mobsters and mafias and all that like very interesting, but I don't know that much. So this was all new to me as well.
Right, yeah, I don't really know about like many mobsters like Al Capone. Like I saw his
Yeah,
cell at Eastern State. And wasn't there a guy named like Bugs or Bugsy or
yeah, Bugsy's
Bug
something.
Bugs something, yeah. I don't know too
Um,
many mobster names.
no, yeah, and there was one. There was a Netflix one. I can't remember what the name was because I'm so terrible at names, but it was a good one. Netflix, check it out. Oh, sorry, I'm just really bad at names, but it was a good
Maybe
one.
I can insert it on the screen or something.
Yeah, if I go look it up, I swear it
Yeah.
started with a G, but I don't remember. Oh, and speaking of names, what I'm telling this case, this is a lot of Italian names. I'm going to do my best. However, I already know I am going to screw up some of these names, so take it easy on me. So, okay, so we are talking about, are you ready? This is the only time during this whole thing I will bring out some Italian. Nicodemo Scarfo.
That was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
Also known as Little Nicky. He
Much
was
easier.
born March 8th, 1929, to parents Philip and Catherine Scarfo in Brooklyn, New York. His parents were Italian immigrants trying to make it in New York, but around that time was when the market crashed. So when he was 12 years old, the family moved to South Philadelphia. He worked as a day laborer and graduated from Benjamin Franklin High School in 1947. Scarfo was only 5'5", and he was also known to have a high pitched voice that he was very self conscious about.
A little 5'5" mobster.
Yep, little
Who'd be
five
afraid
foot
of
five.
him?
I'm a big gangster, you know, 5'1".
Yeah.
Um, right out of high school, he became an amateur boxer, competing in small clubs around Philadelphia. But he quickly developed a reputation for being very aggressive in the ring with boxing. But because of his small stature, boxing didn't become successful for him, so he eventually hung up his boxing gloves. He then joined his uncle, Nicky Buck, a Philadelphia mob soldier who became Scarfo's apprentice. While learning the ropes with Buck, Scarfo also worked as a bartender at a different uncle's bar. Scarfo's uncles would be known as the Piccolo brothers. Sorry, I don't know why that word's hard for me. Piccolo brothers. Holding ranks with the mob, like Uncle Buck, he was a captain under the current mob boss, Angelo Bruno. Scarfo's position in the mob at this point, though, was just a lower level member, and Scarfo hated authority and refused to fall in line under Bruno's leadership. So in 1963, Buck saved Scarfo from a hit that Bruno had put out on him
Oh
because
wow.
he had denied a marriage proposal from one of Bruno's associates and called the woman ugly.
Ooh.
And then also on May 25th, 1963, at Organ Diner in Philly, Scarfo and an associate went up to a table that appeared to be empty, but it was already occupied by an Irish man who had just gotten up to go talk to somebody. So when he came back to the table, an argument ensued between Scarfo and the man, and so Scarfo pulled out a knife and stabbed him to death
In a restaurant
in a restaurant in
with
public
witnesses.
with witnesses. Yep.
Wow. That's
He
bold.
claimed self-defense at the trial, and he only got a year in jail for that.
Wow. That's sad.
Angelo Bruno, who, like I said, he was the current mob boss at the time, he hated that kind of public attention from basically a public execution.
Hmm.
So Angelo was known to his nickname was the Docile Don because he preferred talking it over versus violence to solving his problems.
Interesting.
Yeah. He held that mob boss position for 30 years, running Philly in a pretty like peaceful manner with that kind of attitude.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Once, yeah, once Scarfo was released from prison, Bruno banished him to Atlantic City, New Jersey, right on the outskirts of the Philly mafia border. Sending Scarfo here was a slap in the face, though, because Atlantic City was past its prime at this time. It was a rundown, old town that nobody was vacationing at anymore.
It's the same now.
I haven't been there in forever.
I was there, I think, once in 2015.
Oh, yeah, mine was way before that.
Yeah, and it's been run down for a long time.
Yeah. In 1970, New Jersey State Commission investigated organized crime in the Atlantic City area, and that caused them to subpoena Bruno and Scarfo, who both pleaded the fifth. So Bruno spent 32 months in prison with Scarfo. And when he left before Scarfo did, Bruno gave him 10 paper clips as a message of disrespect, saying he isn't even worth 10 paper clips.
Hmm.
You'll see, like, the mob is all about sending a message.
Yeah.
And they do it in very unique ways. There's lots of times in here that they're sending messages.
Hmm.
So there was tension between Bruno and Scarfo for a while. And in July 1973, Scarfo met Nick the Crow Caramondi, who became a very close associate with Scarfo and a very important witness for Scarfo's later conviction.
Okay.
Caramondi's main job for Scarfo was bringing in that dirty money. Scarfo told him, "Do what you want, I'll take care of the consequences."
Hmm.
He described Scarfo as a young, well-dressed, and good-looking man who kept his personal life very private, but he definitely did not skimp on living a lavish lifestyle. By 1976, gambling became legal in Atlantic City, so Scarfo capitalized on this by opening up his own concrete business. And he took over Atlantic City by forcing all of the companies to go into contracts with his business to pour the foundation for all of the hotels, the casinos, parking lots,
Oh, wow.
anything that required concrete. He took over Atlantic City, forcing all of them to hire his company to lay those foundations. And so, since he's laying those concrete foundations for all these companies, he got his nitty gritty little hands into everything, and he was pretty
Yeah.
much running Atlantic City from the bottom up.
Literally.
Scarface started associating with the owner of the bartender and waiter union, Frank Gerace. Frank paid Scarfo $30,000 a month in an envelope for his protection, and in return, Scarfo was running the bartender and the waiter union, meaning that if someone, an owner of a business, decided to defy Scarfo in a single phone call, he could have every single one of those employees on strike and that business shut down.
Jeez.
So he had a lot of
Powerful.
power. In 1978, a huge statement that Scarfo made was when him and his associate Nick the Blade, Virgilio, shot and killed Judge Edwin Halfont when he took a $12,500 bribe to give oh my goodness, these names. Virgilio a lighter sentence, who was facing a murder charge at the time, but instead the judge took the money, and you don't do that to Scarfo and get away with it. So he publicly executed the judge at the Flamingo Hotel
Oh my god.
to send a huge statement saying, don't fuck with Scarfo, even if you're a judge.
Public execution of a judge? And they just got away with that?
Yep. In 1979, a concrete business owner named Vincent Falcone began talking smack about Scarfo and how crappy his concrete business was, which pissed Scarfo off. So on December
You sure?
16th, 1979, Scarfo invited Falcone to his New Jersey beach house. With them was Scarfo's nephew, Phil Leonetti, friend Larry Martino, and plumber Joseph Salerno. Scarfo told Falcone, Scarfo told Falcone to grab some glasses from the kitchen to pour some drinks, and when his back was turned, Leonetti shot Falcone in the head, and then when he hit the floor, Scarfo jumped up and said, "He ain't dead yet, give him another one." So Leonetti shot him in the chest, and Scarfo was excited about it.
Okay.
He was quoted saying, "Wow, I loved it." They dumped his body in the trunk of his Mercury that the police found the next morning. I mean, this is back in the 80s, the 79, the evidence, so they're getting away with all
Yeah.
this shit right
Yeah.
now. Salerno called the police because he was scared of being an accomplice to the murder, and a week later the 3 other men were arrested. Scarfo got out on bond and was living his life for the next year while he waited for trial, where he was found not guilty because a police officer's testimony saying Scarfo had an alibi, even though Salerno testified and gave his own witness statement. He's still not guilty because I probably paid off the police officer to testify.
I'm sure.
In 1980, 51-year-old Scarfo was earning $300,000 a month from the union he contracted. John McCullough was a businessman in Philadelphia who wanted to split the union with Scarfo but wouldn't take no for an answer. So Scarfo, of course, handled that. The only way that Scarfo does is on December 16th, 1980, he sent an associate to McCullough's house with poinsettia flower arrangements. Because it was we're in December, it's close to Christmas.
Yeah.
He knocked on the door. McCullough's wife left him in to sit the flowers down after, it was a big arrangement. Like, it was big and heavy. So he's like, "Can I set this down?" So the wife let him in. McCullough's in the kitchen on a phone call. And when he set the flowers down, he turned to McCullough, who was on the phone, and pulled out a gun and shot him 6 times in the head and neck.
His poor wife just standing there watching that.
Yeah. And, he probably just ducked out of there,
Yeah.
Like, just mob hit and get out, you know? So at this point, everything Scarfo has done, he's not even a mob boss yet, Kirsten, actually.
Yeah, and he's already pretty powerful.
Yeah, he's not even running any kind of mafia or anything yet.
That's why I was wondering what that other mob boss guy is thinking of him now.
While he's on the other side where he banished him, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Like, I
I would
wonder if he's
imagine he
like
was probably
following
getting
what all
worried.
he's doing.
You would think.
Right.
Okay, so he's still in Atlantic City making as much money as he can, while Angelo Bruno is still in charge in Philly. On March 21st, 1980, while Angelo Bruno was in his car outside of his South Philadelphia home, he was shot in the head with a shotgun by his advisor, Antonio Capringo. His nickname was Tony Bananas. The orders were never given for Bruno's execution, so, of course, um, Tony's body was found in the trunk of his car, abandoned in Brooklyn, New York. He was hit with hammers, hatchets, pipes. He was shot 13 times, and a $20 bill was shoved up his rectum to send a message that he was too greedy for his own good and paid the price.
Okay.
Philip Tester, also known as the Chicken Man, then took over for less than a year after Bruno, but he was killed by a nail bomb that was placed on his front porch. Allegedly, Testa's underboss placed the hit on him. And he created a small bomb with 20 sticks of dynamite and the nails that he placed on the front porch step, waiting for Testis to come home. And the man sat in his car out front. And when he came home and he got to the front door, the man hit the switch for the bomb to go off, which then blew Testa through his front closed door, killing him pretty much instantly. Like, the whole front of the house was blown in.
When you were talking about the
Can you imagine
flowers,
that?
I thought you were going to say there was a bomb in the flowers.
Right, when I was first reading that, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But nope, they do nice old nail bombs on the front porch.
Sounds painful.
Yeah. They believed Peter Castella did it as a start to an almost decade-long mafia war while Scarfo was in charge. Remember that Angelo, he ran a quiet crime ring, resolving most of his issues without any kind of violence, and
Right.
kept people loyal and honest to him. Like, they trusted him since he
Right.
wasn't looking to hurt people per se. But Scarfo is the exact opposite. He is ruthless. He's erratic. He ruled the mob with violence and an every man for himself mentality.
Did you see anything
He
about
loved
like what
dirt.
his upbringing was like?
His father was, well, because all his uncles and stuff were in the mob.
Oh,
Like,
okay. I
they
wasn't sure if
became
he had
his
like a.
apprentice.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, his uncle was his apprentice for a little while. I do believe his father was in it, but I think his uncles were way more into it than his dad.
Okay, so it's like a family thing.
Yeah. um, every man for himself mentality. He loved all his dirty money. He loved extortion, gambling, loan sharking, murder, whatever. There was no limit for Scarfo. He
Sounds like it.
remained in Atlantic City while he ran Philadelphia. So he didn't even move to Philly. Once he was running, he stayed in Atlantic City. Scarfo made Caramondi his underboss and nephew Leonetti his advisor. And one of the first things he did was tax any of the drug dealers or anybody doing the illegal work in the city. So if you're making money doing something illegal in the city, you're paying a tax to Scarfo. You can't be making money without him making money.
Yeah, of course.
And if you didn't Yeah, and if you didn't pay him, he beat or killed you. Michael Matthews was running for mayor at the time and needed cash for his campaign. So he contacted Scarfo and made a deal that Scarfo could have the zoning privileges of the city if Matthew were to win the election. And don't you know, Matthew did wind up winning, and he upheld his end of the bargain for Scarfo, which then gave Scarfo even more power. In July of 1982, the FBI upheld a gun charge against Scarfo when they had confiscated a Derringer from his apartment that they proved was his gun. And Scarfo then was sent to Dallas, Texas to serve 2 years for that. But that didn't matter. Scarfo was still running Philadelphia from Texas.
No, I'm sure.
While he was there, the I gotta figure out how to say this one again. I want everybody to know I did look all these up, but you can't remember them, okay?
Right, yeah.
Okay?
There's
Like,
too many.
I really focused on Nicodemo Scarfo. Okay. The Riccobini brothers began a turf war in Philadelphia against Scarfo's people, and one of Scarfo's men became one of the first victims that was shot 5 times in the head and back near his car in a gas station parking lot. That began a 2-year gunfight in South Philadelphia, eventually killing or running out of town all of the members associated with the Riccobini brothers.
A 2-year gunfight?
Yeah, like there was the documentary I was watching. It was literally just anywhere in town, down the street. They're trying to take these people out. Like they were actively hunting for them, like a hit
That's crazy.
to take these people out. And they were, I think, now I didn't write these exact numbers, but some of these were saying like, oh, we tried to take him out 8 different times. You know, so like. Can you imagine? They're probably firing off shots down in downtown Philly trying to execute somebody, and you're just going about your day.
Yeah. That's probably happening like every
Like,
day, every other day.
yeah, that's crazy to
That
me
is
that was
crazy.
happening.
And just no one, everyone let it slide.
Yeah, just like, oh, there's the mob again.
Yeah, but that's just mob violence. It's fine.
Whatever. Now out of prison in 1984, the FBI had investigated and released the information that they had obtained about the mayor who was in cahoots with the mob, with the Bob. So that meant all of Scarfo's privileges were now gone that he got with the deal he made with the mayor. And in 1985 is when Scarfo started going downhill. He became overly paranoid, very erratic, and he was beginning to scare a lot of the people that were close to him. And around the same time is also when the FBI began running surveillance on Scarfo, building a case against him to hopefully take down this mob boss. By 1986, they had video proof of Caramundi doing some shady dealings on the boardwalk. So they arrested him, and that pissed off Scarfo. He didn't want that kind of attention. So while Caramundi was in prison, and Scarfo, he knew that Scarfo was irritated about the whole thing, and he's sitting there just stewing on, like, scared. You know, he's scared of this person. He's scared of Scarfo.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there in prison. So he decided, while in prison, that he would become an FBI informant and turn his back on Scarfo.
Okay.
So January 8th, 1987, they arrested Scarfo in Atlantic City Airport and charged him with conspiracy to commit extortion. 4 months later at the trial, Caramundi testified against Scarfo, and he was found guilty, sentenced to 13 years. And then in 1988, they tried him again for 9 murders. which I all the ones that I covered and told you about, those were included in those 9 murders. So
Okay.
there was more. We would have been here all day if I told you all of the mob hits that Scarfo over his 9-year reign,
Right.
put out. But I tried to pick some of like kind of the interesting ones. But he was charged then with the 9 murders. On May 9th, 1989, they found him guilty of all accounts, and that added 55 years onto his already 13-year sentence. One of Scarfo's sons ended up attempting to take his own life during the trials, and that ended him in a coma for 25 years until his body finally gave out in 2014.
Oh my God.
One of his other sons wanted nothing to do with the criminal family, and he has gone on to live his own life. And his third son, who is the Scarfo Jr., is currently serving a 30-year sentence and followed in his father's footsteps. Scarfo remained in prison in Atlanta. He was later transferred to a medical center in North Carolina, where he died at the old age of 87 in 2017.
Wow. Not that long ago.
Yep.
I can't believe they kept someone in a coma for 25 years.
When I read that, I was
Can you
like,
imagine that medical bill?
that's what I was thinking. Like, it was just because they had money, I guess.
I guess.
Because, like, there's 25 years. And he wound up just dying because his body gave out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which actually, I want to cover a case that has to kind of do with life support. That's pretty controversial.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that was the short, interesting kind of. I don't know if it was short. How long was it?
We're at 31.
30. Why do I feel like I didn't cover everything? Did it skip? Did I skip? No. I feel like I must have just ran through that so fast, Kirsten. It was just as long as my yogurt shop one. And I was like, oh, yeah, this will be a long one.
Uh huh.
No, I don't feel like I talked as long, but that's okay. But I thought it was a nice.
Yeah, that's the mob world is it's very interesting.
It is. I find it intriguing that all that, like, how
Yeah, I
much.
don't know too much history. Like, how did mobs even start? How did the mob even come about?
Yeah, that's
I
true.
don't know the history of it.
Yeah. I mean, organized crime has always been a thing, really. So
Yeah.
I think it just probably evolved to that extent of, drugs, alcohol, and violence type thing.
Uh huh. It's just crazy that like one person can be so powerful that even the police listen to what they say.
Literally. Yeah. Everybody was shaking in their boots in
Like,
Philly.
how does someone get that power? It's crazy.
It is. Violence and money talks.
Mm-hmm. Which we've discussed that in multiple cases now.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, whenever any kind of case, we talk about motive, right? And like money's
Mm-hmm.
always really high up there for people. So
Yeah, it
that
is. Yep.
definitely the mob, that is very important to them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
There's is the mob is still around, I guess, right? Or
I mean, I'm
are they still
guessing
around?
because his son is serving 30 years, and it was something like extortion or something that he was doing. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not to this. It's definitely, I don't think, to the extent that it was back in the 80s, where you could just be
Right.
blasting people in the streets, and we didn't have the
Yeah. Yeah.
technology to, or things like that to capture that. We got so many video cameras and stuff nowadays, but I definitely
Right.
think
Yeah.
it's still out there for sure.
Yeah. I'm sure it is. It's a lot harder to get away with things now.
Yeah, which, I ain't complaining.
No. I don't want to go to Philly and accidentally be hit by the mob,
Oh,
in a gunfight.
and I picked Philly just because I didn't know anything about Philly mobs. Like you hear Al Capone,
Yeah.
Chicago, those types of things, but
Yeah, you think about like Chicago and New
New York,
York and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but no, Philly was in it, man.
Because the Valentine's Day massacre, that was Chicago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, make like a shadow and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at.
Lurking in the Shadows podcast.
Follow us on TikTok.
At Lurking in the Shadows pod.
And if you have any case suggestions or any thing to tell us, send us a Gmail.
At Lurking in the Shadows podcast at gmail.com. And please give us case suggestions. We do have a list, but we want more. I'm sure there's plenty of cases we haven't heard of. So give us some suggestions. And keep lurking around for our next episode.
Bye.
Bye.